Welcome back to the Cultural Curriculum Chat. I'm your host, Jebeh Edmunds, and today we're exploring how virtual reality, VR, can foster empathy and strengthen cultural competence in schools and workplaces, plus safe, budget-friendly ways to try it. Picture this: your team, quote unquote, walks through a marketplace in another country. You notice greetings, spacing, eye contact, all different from your norm. Back in the room, people say, I didn't realize how my habits read in another context. That's VR at its best, perspective taking that you can feel. VR is a practice space, it's not a fix. It helps learners experience a context, notice assumptions, and rehearse inclusive responses. But it must be paired with facilitation, reflection, and real world action. So let's start with safety first and ethics, okay? No one should be forced to wear a headset. Provide a 360 video on a laptop or a narrative walkthrough as an equivalent experience. Sometimes that could lead to dangerous situations. So even if you have a video or seeing a YouTube video with somebody's GoPro through that same kind of an exercise that you can put up on your Promethean board or your smart board for your students or your staff. Accessibility, make sure that you have captions, transcripts, volume control, and breaks, because sometimes you even have to watch for motion sensitivity. I couldn't even get through Mario Kart when I was a kid because I got so dizzy. So think about how you can be better accessible for all of your students and staff. And psychological safety is a must. Provide brief context about what's inside the experience, avoid trauma reenactments, okay? And make sure that environment is positive so all people can see people in a positive and not stereotypical light. Privacy, vet your vendors' data practices. That is first and foremost. Avoid accounts for minors when possible, and no recording faces without consent. And again, get consent from your school district and look at their policies as well. That also is very important. Some great VR scenarios for cultural competence. Look at cross-cultural greetings and norms, time and space, how people value that, how they value eye contact. And think about service interactions, what it's like to go to a clinic or a different school office, the day-to-day of a school day, or retail. What are those interactions with? And think about that with language and access barriers. What are the barriers? What could students pick out that would be a barrier, either language or access-wise? And think about those bias micro moments with branching choices to practice repair, acknowledge, repair, change the behavior. Okay. And heritage site or a community visit that visits centers contemporary voices and doesn't center the stereotype. Okay. So greetings, service interactions, what is the barrier to the language or the access? Think about those micro moments, acknowledge, repair, change the behavior, and what is a community visit or a heritage site that has contemporary voices to those places that isn't stereotypical. So I want you to try these 3 things next week. Pick your budget. I know sometimes budgets can be tight, but first and all, just find free low tech. Use a 360-degree video in a browser. Remember, make sure it is compliant with your district policies and your organization policies. And pair it with a notice, name, reflect protocol. Okay, what did you notice? What can you point out? And how did we reflect going forward? Okay, now if you have something that is a little up in your budget, you could probably do 3 to 5 viewers, rotated in small groups, assign roles, explorer, observer, note taker for that one. And if you have a healthy, big budget for your classroom or your organization, maybe get a full class set. Of course, the approved apps by your district, and maybe do 3 to 5 minutes per scene. And remember to clean devices between uses and set a seated mode to reduce motion sickness. Even having a guide, having someone that is their hand that isn't on a set to guide them safely around the classroom. So they could be their extra pair of eyes that does not have the viewer on their head. Another thing that you can do when you are doing a mini lesson, you could, of course, start with your relearning, your goals, your norms, the path that you're going to do, and taking deep breaths before you put the headset on or use the 360-degree screen. But always use that prompt. What did you notice? What do you wonder? And then when you do that exercise, remember, no more than 3 to 5 minutes. We don't want our kiddos to get too dizzy. I want you to debrief using their feelings, facts, frames, and their futures. I love that methodology. Feelings, name the emotions without any debate. Just what are you feeling? Your initial reactions to things. Facts, what did you see? What did you hear? Frame, the cultural frame. Which cultural lenses might be shaping that behavior? Even if it's not your own, but what lenses are you seeing that could shape that particular behavior? And the future, what inclusive action are you going to try moving forward? And then I love a good think, pair, share. I want you to, towards the end, commit 4 minutes. I want you to pair and share your real life scenario this week. What are you going to do for this week coming forward? Getting that future into action is what I love. Got to let the kids commit, or even your colleague commit to see. Now, if you are the facilitator, I want you to use this language. There's more than one right interpretation. Remember, let's collect those perspectives. And I want you to think of there's no wrong answer here. There's multiple answers, multiple perspectives. If harm happened in that choice, how could we prepare that harm? How could we repair it? And what support or saying would make this inclusive choice easier in the moment? Let's practice that, okay? Now, I also want you to continue to think about the metrics and how much they matter. Knowledge. What terms, what norms across contexts do I want my student or my colleague to know? Empathy, okay? Self-report, your own prompts. I can have a perspective take when norms are different than mine, okay? The behavior. I've been observed inclusive language. What repair steps are used in this meeting or this classroom? And with our systems, what policy tweaks can I do? Do I need to translate differently? Do I need to have different types of accessible things in place? Do I need to have a quiet space for prayer or meditative practice? Or just to decompress and get some grounding in my classroom or my workspace? And maybe I need to have some more flexible deadlines. All of those can go in. Now, you know me, I love a good pitfall and fix. So we could call this, instead of a cool field trip, maybe tie it to our cool current voices. What's happening right now in real time? What local action can we do, right? And we want to get rid of the savior narrative. All right. We want to center the community that you're observing and the agency, and not the rescue. Not what can we do to do better? What can be done? How do we save this community? I want it to center around the community and what they are doing and have that at the center. Now, another thing I've noticed is the overexposure. We want to keep it short sessions, okay? Like I said, no more than 3 to 5 minutes max. And I want you to be clear and content with your notes, okay? And debrief every single time. Remember, feelings, facts, frames, and futures. You've got your observer, you have your note taker, and you have your explorer. And maybe doing multiple things, I want you to have multiple scenarios. So making sure every student or every member in your workforce has a chance to be each of those three roles. Okay? I want you to pick one micro action that you can do today. I'm going to give you three options. Yes, your girl's being generous today. Three options. I want you to add an opt in statement or alternatives to your lesson plan. Okay? Have them opt in, make them feel like they are a part of their learning. Number two, I want you to create a one-page debrief guide, feelings, facts, frames, and future. Have a debrief, create that. You can do it. And then I want you to schedule a follow-up practice, maybe role play or a prepare script for the students to talk about a common bias moment that they notice either in the video or that they notice in their own interaction. So I want you to pick one of those micro actions and I want you to put that into practice, educator or facilitator in the office. Now, do you want plug and play supports? My Common Core aligned multicultural lesson plans are for you. And I also have self-paced mini courses, cultural competency and being an active ally, and code switching 101. They include checklists, activities, reflection prompts,